I never realized you had such respect for Dorne.
We are not the Seven Kingdoms until Dorne returns to the fold. The king is dead. The Greyjoys are in open rebellion. A wildling army marches on the wall. And in the east, a Targaryen girl has 3 dragons. Only the Dornish managed to resist Aegon Targaryen and his dragons.
Leathery wings were seen above the Prince's Pass in the Red Mountains. The Targaryens had finally come to Dorne, or at least one of them. Rhaenys, sister and queen to Aegon the Conqueror, flew above the sand, but only encountered women, children, and deserted castles all the way to Sunspear, where the Princess of Dorne, Mary Martell, awaited her. Rhaenys had been sent in her brother's name to conquer Dorne, but if the dragons expected another Vale or Cracklow Point, the Dornish sorely disappointed them. The Yellow Toad of Dorne, as Princess Mary was called by her enemies, defied the Targaryen queen and assured her that Dorne would not fight them, but would not kneel to them either. Then Rhaenys did as Targaryens would often do, threaten fire and blood. But what good is Dragonflame if enemies don't stand there to be burnt alive? That, the Targaryens would find out. You may burn us, but you will not bend us, break us, or make us bow. This is Dorne. You are not wanted here. Return at your peril. And so the queen did, but not for a few years. After the heart of Westeros had been conquered, Aegon gazed south, wanting to bring Dorne into their rule. The Targaryens launched their invasion in 4 AC, but where it had taken 2 years to subdue the other 6 kingdoms, Aegon's campaign to try and conquer Dorne would last for 9 years, and it would take nearly 2 more centuries for the Martells, unbowed and unbroken, to at least bend their knees to the Iron Throne. However, in that initial bloody conflict, known to history as the First Dornish War, Aegon became conqueror of abandoned castles, while his bannermen died of thirst and heat. House Will of the Boneway faced the invaders openly, but the rest of the Dornish lords abandoned their castles, not willing to defend them, nor bend the knee, as Princess Mary had warned. Rhaenys attacked first. She seized every abandoned city she encountered, and her dragon Meraxes burned the Blanky town. Aegon and the Tyrell army fought in the Prince's Pass, while his bastard half-brother and the first hand of the king, Lord Orys Baratheon, led a force through the Boneway. Aegon and Harlan Tyrell faced heavy opposition by Dornish defenders, who fled and hid as soon as Balerion took to the sky. Many Tyrell soldiers died in the desert trying to reach Hellholt, and those who finally did found the castle deserted. Aegon found Skyreach abandoned and besieged Ironwood briefly, which was defended by a handful of old men, boys, and women. At Ghost Hill, he was challenged to single combat by Lord Toland's champion, but after he slew the man with Blackfire, he realized that the champion was Lord Toland's mad fool. Ghost Hill was deserted as well. The wars fell to Orys Baratheon up the Boneway. His army was pelted with rocks, arrows, and spears from above, while his men were murdered at night. Then the Dornishmen blocked the path in front and behind his army, and the Lord of Will captured him, with many of his bannermen and knights. When Aegon and Rhaenys finally reached Sunspear, they found that Princess Mary had also vanished. They foolishly declared themselves victorious and left for King's Landing, leaving Lord Jon Rosby as Castellan of Sunspear and Warden of the Sands, and Lord Harlan Tyrell as strength against revolts. But the Targaryens had only just returned to King's Landing when Dorne erupted. All the men that had vanished came back to retake their castles and put entire garrisons to the sword, with those in charge horrifically tortured and mutilated. In Sunspear, Jon Rosby was captured, and Princess Mary herself threw him out of a window. Harlan Tyrell marched at once to Sunspear, but he and his army were swallowed by the sand, never to be heard of again. And Orys Baratheon was ransomed after 3 years as a hostage, but had his sword hand chopped off so that he could never take up arms against Dorne again. Aegon retaliated by burning Dornish castles time and time again. The following year, the Dornishmen set the Rainwood on fire and sacked every town and village in their path. Then, Dornish castles burned again. In 10 AC, Aegon and Visenya were attacked by Dornish assassins in the streets of King's Landing, which led to the creation of the Kingsguard. Lord Fowler attacked Nightson in the Stormlands, and Sir Joffrey Dane marched an army to Old Town, razing fields and villages along the way. And then, Dornish castles burnt again. Specifically, Starfall, the seat of House Dane, Skyreach, the seat of House Fowler, but it was in Hellhold, the seat of House Uller, where the dragons suffered the hardest blow in the Wars of Conquest, and perhaps ever. Meraxes, the mount of Queen Rhaenys, was struck in the eye by a bolt and brought down, along with her rider. What followed, the Maesters called the Dragon's Wrath. Aegon atop Balerion and Visenya atop Vhagar burned every Dornish stronghold at least once, save Sunspear and its Shadow City. But by the end of those 2 years, even though Dorne was a blasted, burning ruin from the Red Mountains to the mouth of the Greenblood, the Dornishmen continued to fight. Then in 13 AC, Cygnus, a ship with Dragonflame, never could. Princess Mary Martell died, and her son Nymor, now ruling Prince of Dorne and weary of war, sent his daughter, Daria, as a peace envoy to King's Landing. Whether meant as a gift or a slight, when the skull of the dragon Meraxes entered the throne room, it angered many at the royal court, chiefly among them Queen Visenya Targaryen and Orys Baratheon. The gift to the king was so ill received that Lord Oakheart proposed that Daria be sent to a brothel to service any man who would have her, but Aegon refused. When Daria delivered her father's terms, proposing peace as two kingdoms no longer at war, not peace between a vassal and a lord, the words "No peace without submission" ran through the hall. What choice did Aegon have? The Dornish had killed his beloved sister queen and thwarted his dream of unifying all of Westeros. For those present at court, there was no choice at all. Anything less than refusing the offer would be seen as weakness and may cause the Conqueror fresh rebellions closer to home. This much was clear, until Daria handed Aegon her father's letter. Atop his dragon-forged throne, the dragon read with his dragon eyes, and men said that he clenched the letter so hard that you could see his dragon blood dripping, and when he was done, he burned the letter, like so many other things he had burned before, to rule his new kingdom. Then he mounted Balerion and departed at once for Dragonstone. The next morning, he returned and agreed to the peace terms. There is no official account of what was in the letter, just speculation. Some say it contained a heartfelt pledge from one father to another that touched the king's heart, so heavy with loss. Others that it had a list of all the lords and noble knights who had lost their lives in such a futile conflict. Septons claimed that the letter may have been ensorcelled, written by the Yellow Toad of Dorne before her death, using Queen Rhaenys' own blood for ink. And one Grand Maester even suggested that in his desperation to end the war, Nymor Martell may have threatened to spend all of Dorne's remaining gold to hire the faceless men of Braavos to kill Aegon's heir, Aenys, Queen Rhaenys' surviving son of 6. The latter may be closer to the truth, but there is another possibility, darker. Queen Rhaenys may have survived her fall at Hellhold, but broken and mutilated, and was being kept alive in extreme torment in revenge for the Dornish bloodshed. And if so, the letter must have contained Martell's promise to give her the gift of mercy, on the condition that Aegon agreed to end the war. Could that really have been the case? Though far-fetched, this gives a different light to the Dornishmen bringing the skull of Meraxes to court. Could it have been a reminder? And this would more than justify Aegon's hand dripping blood. But no man would ever know. Whatever had been in the letter, the result was an end to the war, and Dorne remained independent. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken. Aegon the Conqueror reigned for another 24 years, but the war with the Dornish was the last he ever fought. Valar Dohaeris.